So I'm going to make a video about the whole Ashley Jude incident with Review Tech USA, and just kind of give my... I'm just out in my garage, so if you hear me like kind of putting on my boots, I'm just kind of walking around a little bit. But anyways, if you're just kind of wondering like what's going on here, like the whole thing with video games is that, you know, they're getting to the point where so many people play them, but there's so many people that don't understand them, and yet there's a lot of people that attack them because they think that people will do what they see. And some people don't realize that people aren't really like that. Now, before I get into this, I want to point out one thing, okay? I mean, as far as feminism goes, I mean, I can see what they're trying to achieve, like their goal. They want everybody to have equal rights, and I agree with that. I think all men, all women should be treated equally. But at the same time, though, you know, there's differentiations, meaning like people are better at some things than others, but at the same time, vice versa, you know? I think one of the major points I want to start off with this is that, you know, it's not the video games. It can't be the video games that cause these problems. You see, when people go after video games, they always try to make it sound like they're going to corrupt everybody. They're going to kill everybody. Well, let's think about this for a second. If they were going to kill everybody, then everybody would be killing other people right now. But they do the exact opposite. I'll give you another example. You know, people often like to, well, at least in the Western audience anyways, or the Western culture, like America, you know, a lot of people go after video games because they think that they're evil, and some people try to make it sound like they're misogynistic. Well, that's kind of a broad statement, but that lacks evidence. Because the thing about it, if feminism, well, put it this way, if it was really sexist that video games were to encourage women to, I mean, wouldn't it just make, I mean, bear with me here. If it was really misogynistic, meaning like it's like all men, and there would be no women at all. But you play video games, there's women in them. There's different races, there's different... Heck, there's even, I mean, heck, even look at Asia. You know, look at their games that they make. They make what is known as like visual novels and a lot of other games. And, you know, a lot of their games might have a lot of sexuality in it. I'll be honest with you. There's games like The Record of a Garist where, you know, they pretty much, it's like a whole centerization based on like the way we look at life, but in a fantasy. You know, like there's a character that, you know, he falls in love with these maidens, and, you know, they have a child. And then it goes to the next generation, and then, you know, that child is now the next hero, and, you know, and then he continues the cycle until he has a child, and it just keeps going on and on. You know, I mean, you know, if like, well, think of it like this: the definition of sexism would be to pretty much put one sex over the other. But if sorry, I'm just cold right now. Michigan weather's like really, really cold. But if video games were really terrible, like, and they were sexist, then they wouldn't be doing these things. They wouldn't be having, like, women, you know, and men. It would just be men, and there would be no audience for it. But at the same time, though, it's not like you can really control, like, how many men and how many women play video games. I mean, it's just what it is what it is, you know. You know, it's like when you know, and not to mention, you know, if people are trying to make it sound like all video games are terrible and all people are going to go out and kill people, no, it's not. It's the people themselves that are to blame. I mean, think of it like this. You know, you feminists go after video games and they always say that they're terrible. But I want you to think about this for a second. I mean, like, really think about this. If people were really going to go out and kill people because maybe they didn't raise their kids right, which is the reason, not the video games, then look at Asia, for example. Again, you know, okay, they might be a different culture compared to America, but like, look at them. Like, they're males and females. You know, they raise their kids to be obedient, meaning like very well received and all that. And I mean, they're fine. And look at what their culture consists of. I mean, there's a lot of things in their culture that are very interesting. You know, and I mean, okay, you know, in some cases they might censor stuff, but at the same time, though, you know, they don't censor a lot of things, and especially when it comes to their video games. I mean, you know, they could have some guy get killed in a video game, and it's fine. But at the same time, though, they could have, like, a man and a woman. Like, I mean, I played games where, like, they've literally had women, like, show their breasts, and, you know, it's, like, I mean, like, from a articulate standpoint, like, you know, like, women like even art, like let's say a guy drew a picture of a naked woman. I mean, I would find that beautiful. I mean, I appreciate the female body. Not to mention, not to bring religion into this, but like let's say that there is some sort of a deity out there that created all this. I mean, wouldn't it technically be like, I mean, okay, I'm not trying to bring this religion into this like on purpose, but think about this though. If people are saying that they are against their own body, like take feminism, like they might say that in some aspects that we are, like they're just offended that women aren't treated equally, but like they're like also offended that women are the way they are, and it's like, well, wait a minute, then isn't that technically saying that we go against what this creator represented? If there is one, like let's say that there is a God and it created all of it made us in its own image. I mean, if we were saying that we don't like the way we are and who we are, does that really make us like say that we don't appreciate this for what it does for us or something like that? Again, I'm an agnostic. I'm just throwing that out there as an interesting example. So for example, if a woman was to say that she's not beautiful because she doesn't think she is, I mean, technically speaking, by that logic, does that mean that, they don't agree that women can be beautiful? So when you see feminists trying to censor all these things because they think it's offensive, I mean, doesn't that technically mean that, you're trying to make it sound like women aren't, the whole reason why men love women is because they fall in love with other women. Or it could be vice versa. Maybe there's a woman that loves other women. Maybe there's a guy that loves other guys. Or maybe the guy's bisexual. Maybe he loves men and women. I mean, I'm straight, but I see this happen all the time. I mean, the reason why again, the whole idea, I'm not here to attack feminism. I'm just saying that I just think that people need to take a step back and really realize that, we're not really, we're really dividing ourselves. So the problem isn't the video games, but rather people themselves. The only reason why, I mean, take feminism, for example. I mean, if you really want to know who to blame the parents. Blame the parents for not raising their kids right, and, and then they go out and, they're racist and they're sexist, and, I mean, blame the parents that passed on their, that's who you should be blaming. The only reason why take the police, for example, when they arrest somebody from committing a crime that this guy should have not have done. I'll be honest with you. There was a guy that when me and my friends were driving down the street the other day, and there was a guy that got arrested. There was 3 cop cars there. This guy was probably caught stealing from the store, and they called for backup because he was actually in the parking lot when this happened, and it was. He was in the store, come to find out because I saw the story later on, it was actually, he was robbing the store, but, and he got busted for it, but the only reason that guy thought he could get away with that was because he did something stupid. So, when the cops arrested this guy, and they said, okay, this guy obviously should know not to do this, but, he did it anyways, I mean, he made a bad example for himself and, for society because he thought that, justification-wise, but it was his fault that he did that, so it was the human's fault. So, it's for the same reason why, if you're really concerned about people going after video games and saying, they're terrible and that they're sexist, well, again, if they are sexist, like you say they are, then what about, movies like Hollywood and people killing people in real life and stuff like that? I mean, humans are very destructive creatures, and really, it's not... as far as, sexism goes, I mean, the only reason why sexism even exists, and again, I agree with them, I agree with the fact that we should not do these things. It's terrible, it doesn't solve anything, and I mean, even look at, stuff like Tiny Tim, for example, the musician way back in the 50s and 60s, he was a guy that used to sing, songs about, how people should love everybody, and, and he loved everybody. Martin Luther King was another one. He talked about how he had a dream that all men and women, regardless of their age, their sex, that, no matter what we do, we could find a way to still get along. And I believe the same thing with feminists. We could get along regardless of how different we all might be on some things. But what I'm trying to say is this, though. Going after fictional media, it just doesn't, you're not really going to, why would you really worry about a woman that's not real? At least not yet anyways. But the way I look at it, rather than going after like the video game designers and, go after the people that really do this stuff in real life. I mean, just because someone designs it in a video game, it's not really, they could be just trolling, but, other than that, it's not like people really want to do these things in real life unless, of course, they're dumb enough to, but really, it's not, it's humans that are to blame. It's not, like think of it like this. Video games and television shows, shouldn't really be sexist or written off like that, because it's just a fantasy. It's just somebody else's opinion or a fact on it. But, like, if you think about it, though, people in real life are sexist, though. Like, maybe not the game designers or the movie producers if they make a movie, but like, if some guy decided to go up to somebody in real life and say, I hate this guy because he's a jackass, or, again, sorry if that offends anybody, but you see what I'm saying, though. It's not like fantasies that we should hate. It's realism that people should hate. Like other people being unfair to others. Like, I'll give you another example. Like, people who go to work and they hate their job because the people they work for, maybe it's not your fault that you tried really hard to really get somewhere, but, like, everybody around you doesn't believe in you because they're too ignorant to understand that. I'll give you another example. Like, look at, people in general. Like, if people would just stop and think and put other people first, everything would be fine. Rather than making fun of people and trying to start stuff like drama, everybody, just love everybody. Again, like Tiny Tim said, love everybody and help people out. That's what will build a better society. And, he was right about that before he passed away. Same thing with Carl Sagan. Even he was a writer and for science and all, and a philosopher. Well, he was a bunch of other things too, but, he was, cosmologist, astronomer. He was an author, writer, producer. He pretty much stated that, we just need to love everybody, help people out, and, not be scared of the unknown and not be afraid to try new things, but, like, we should always put ourselves last and try putting other people first. Like putting ourselves, individuals, last, but putting other people, but ourselves first. So that way, the world will be a better place. But the way I look at it, I mean, the same thing goes for feminism. I mean, rather than sitting here hating everybody because we're different, and, I just feel that we should all sit down and think these things through. I mean, if it's fantasy, I mean, really don't worry about it. It's not going to impact the world. It's other people that are going to impact the world. So, if people want to make a fantasy, that's fine. I mean, as long as it's not going to be taken seriously, as long as there's no harm and foul, like people are going to go out and do that realistically and people can think, then they'll be fine. But if they're really going to go out and kill somebody in real life, then yeah, then they should be concerned. Stuff like that, then people should be concerned. Like, again, if some guy, take like the cops again, like for example, if some guy was going to rob a bank, and he was going to do it, like really going to do it, then yeah, you'd have every reason to be concerned, because now it's like, well, okay, how do we know if this guy's really, we don't know what this guy's going to do if he's crazy enough to do it, But I'll give you another example. If some guy was willing to, kill somebody or threaten somebody, you would probably most likely be concerned in some aspect, because some people are crazy. Because they just, maybe nobody understands them, and then it results in this behavior. I've studied psychology. That's really the conclusion I came to. But as far as like somebody is saying like they do this in a video game, though, I mean already you should already be thinking that that's not a bad idea, because it's not real. I mean, like take like Resident Evil 7. I mean, it looks really graphical because it's a horror game, but it's like, it's not really. Once you really get over that fact that, yeah, it's like kind of like a scary game, but it's like once you really get to that conclusion that it's not real, and and eventually the horror aspect kind of fades away because it's not real. It's acting is what it is. So it's not really going to affect somebody. If somebody is affected by it, then they probably shouldn't play those games, but eventually they grow stronger and they get over it. But as far as like somebody doing it in real life, like take me for example, okay? I'll be honest. I mean, it was 5.5 years ago, but I remember when I was in high school and I graduated, there were some people I couldn't get along with. I mean, I won't name their names, but there were times when they wanted to start something with me and they thought it was funny. And I'd look at some of these people and I'd say, like, really, dude, you're going to do this in front of all these people. Meanwhile, I was sitting here educating them that people like in Asia, like when they get out of high school, because they go to school all year round, like when they're 15, 16 years old, and most of their life, most of these people, they're obedient. they might have strict parents, sure, but they're, just the way they utilize their time in the fastest way possible just achieves so much. Like, they don't fight, they don't quarrel. Maybe some do, but for the most part, they're pretty smart people. They know how to function, and, when they have their own children, if they do, they pass on the genes and they teach them everything they need to know. And they do the same thing, and their society's really good. And they're pretty much make up majority of the world's population, and they're doing pretty fine last time I checked. Even though they have their own problems too, but, it's like they say, getting rid of ignorance is the first step to progression. If we can do the same thing in the United States, then everybody can get along. You want to know why? You want to stop people from doing stupid things? Well, people need to stop being stupid. And here's how we do it. We admit we're wrong, and we find a way to keep going. Because here's the way I look at it. I mean, as far as video games go, if you really want to say, to the feminists, if you're watching this, don't go after something that's not the real problem. Go after the people that are the problem. Like, for example, there's people out there that are sexist. What you should do is you should find a way to sit down with these people, and I mean, in a peaceful way, and say, hey, take a look at the hippie era, for example, in the 1980s. Look at how they stormed Washington, D.C. There was so many hippies in the hippie era that just outright went there, and they weren't violent. Some of them were chased away, sure, but they still got their way, though, because there were so many of them standing up for their beliefs, and they did it in a peaceful, loving way. And there might have been some violence, sure, but my point is, though, love and peace and respect, there's always a way around these things. The truth will always shine through. People will always find a way to make progress. There's an infinite number of ways to make progress. And the world there really isn't much problems out there aside from man-made ones. But when people really think that there's a problem, there really isn't. So really, it's ironic is what it is. There's really no problems in society except for when we pretty much create them. And when you might have heard the old saying where they say that don't fix something that's not broke. There's been plenty of people out there that have said that we should venture out into the real world and see what's out there. But at the same time, though, it's we need to be honest with ourselves when we do this. If we lied to ourselves and told everybody and said, hey, this is true because somebody told me so, well, unless that person's right or has a good point to make, I mean, they could be right and wrong, but it really depends on what they say, what's really true in reality, because humanity doesn't know everything. But at the same time, though, we're not just dumb and then that's it. We can literally do anything we put our minds to it. Look at how many scientists out there that have been told that, they were wrong about, they said, your claims are nothing more than a theory. But then, they've proven that they were right this whole time, and everybody else was just wow, how did you really do that? Because they believed in themselves. And I believe that we all can get along. I believe that there's a way that feminism can still, we can exist as a society. But at the same time, though, we just got to stop really going after the wrong people. I think of it like this. If you really want to go after somebody, and I don't mean in a violent way, but if you really want to go after somebody, don't go after the video game industry because, you should be happy that they're putting, they're trying to tell women that they're beautiful and, that people appreciate them. If you really want to go after somebody, go after the people that are racist and are sexist towards other people, but don't attack them though. Just say, hey, what do you guys think about this? Why we should find a way to love everybody and help people out. You'll have better luck with that instead, because at least that will solve the problem if there is one. But really, I think what we just need to understand is that people, think there's a problem when there really isn't, and and I believe that we will realize that over time that there isn't a problem, and we'll just accept it because it's just how it is. People like to complain about a lot of things, but we've also found ways to make the world a better place at the same time. Again, going back to what Tiny Tim said, he used to when he was singing, because that's what he was a musician, he would always he would travel across the world, or at least the areas that I know off the top of my head that he did. People knew who he was at the time because that's how he got out. Like, people said that, they knew who he was because they saw him in person. They knew who he was because he believed in himself. And he even said, like, he doesn't know everything, but he knows that if he was to do something for a long period of time, like in this case dedicated his life to helping people out, he brought a lot of people together, and even after his death, people still remember him. And same thing with Carl Sagan. The guy dedicated his whole life to like science and helping people out, and he inspired people. And he pretty much reminded people, said, hey, you know what? We might not know everything, but one of these days we will. And I don't know what happens when we die, wherever Carl Sagan and Tiny Tim have gone, if they're what we call the afterlife, if there is one. But I believe that, they're probably still happy knowing that people would appreciate what they've done over the years because of the encouragement and the inspiration and the mindsets that they've had. And the same thing with feminism. I applaud people for standing up for what they believe. They want to encourage people to do the right thing, but at the same time, though, maybe we just take the wrong approach towards doing that. So like, we have the right mindset, like we want to help people out, but we just kind of execute it wrong. So rather than attacking people, again, like I said, I think we should really discuss good matters. So again, don't worry about what's not really a problem, but really what is a problem. If you really want to go after people that are sexist, go after powerful people that are sexist and racist, and pretty much the ones that pretty much cause all these problems, because those are where your problems are going to really be. Not the video game industry, but rather bad parenting and brainwashing material. Again, maybe this might be, it's really not that hard. Okay, I was going to say it was hard, but then the more I think about it, it's not really hard, because all you have to do is just figure out what is true and go with that analogy. But like, we have to be willing to admit that we can be wrong too. I understand that everybody wants to think we're always right, but I'll be honest, even I'm not always right. But as a skeptic, I always like to make arguments that are true and try to understand and rationalize everything the best I can. So working together and helping people out, well, regardless of how different people are, that's the way to go. So as long as people can do that, everything will be fine, because that's how it's always been. Like I said, I believe that there's an infinite number of ways of doing it, and I believe humans are smarter than that. Because, again, we've survived all these years. But, just to give you an example, this is what I'll say. Okay, video games have been around not as long as humans have been around, but humans have been sexist, people have been racist, and, it's sad, it really is. But at the same time, though, people aren't always like that, and, we just got to prevent that from happening, So, again, video games existed maybe 50 years ago, but other than that, racism and sexism have always existed far before that, because humans themselves are racist and sexist, and not like 100% evil, but they can be in some aspects depending on how they decide to handle it. So the way I look at it, I think that we need to just find a way to inspire people to just do the right thing, make people realize that they have to care about like other people and love everybody and help people out, and as long as that is happening, then we can make progress in this world. And it's just like that, it's just the way it is. Because again, if video games can't be the problem because they're not real, if someone dies in a video game, then they just come back to life as soon as you start the game over again, or you can just use your imagination that they came back to life. It's just animation is all it is. But my point is this, people, if we just think to ourselves and think that, hey, maybe we can be wrong, but at the same time we can be right too, we can pretty much believe that everything's all right. Everything's going to be fine. People might be different, but progression is always better than it might sound at first. Again, I remember there was a quote by somebody, and I actually just read this one today. They say, fear is a feeling, but it's not always factual, or something like that. I forget that last part, but it's true though. Fear is a feeling, not a fact. If that makes sense. Yeah, that it should. So fear is only intimidation, meaning like to scare you, but that doesn't mean it has to be real. fear of the unknown just really implies that people lack knowledge on something, and it might look scary. But like once people figure out, oh, hey, that's what that is, and that's when it's going to pop up. It's not really scary all of a sudden. So, everything will be fine. People are just over-exaggerating things, and people just are taking the wrong approach. But at the same time, humans are going to figure these things out, and they will figure these things, and they are going to figure these things out because people won't settle for, irrationality. We'll just find a way around it. It's just how long are we just going to deny it? But again, this video's gone on long enough. Again, comment, rate, subscribe, favorite, share this video if you agree. Again, like I said, this video isn't to attack feminism or the people themselves, but it's just to kind of realize that, really there isn't really a problem here. And if you really want to know what the real problem is, if there really is one, go after the people that are sexist, but don't attack them directly and do the same thing. But just, kind of remind them and say, hey, we shouldn't do these things because, it's better to love and help people out. And again, if you don't know who like Carl Sagan or Tiny Tim, and, go watch their videos that they have, and, just be inspired by those people. They grew up in a completely different time period, but it was like, they were there to remind people that love and respect always wins, regardless of how different people are. Because if people love and respect people, you don't have to worry about people doing crazy things, because they'll always put other people first.